Good morning, good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, HubSpot Nation. Welcome back to a special episode of Let's Build HubSpot Onboarding. I'm Chris Carolyn, and today we're doing something different. After months, we've been at this since last August. And we're always exploring tactical onboard challenges with Willem. I've, I think everybody feels there's something deeper going on, and that pattern that explains why even the best HubSpot implementation struggle. And we're going to talk about that today. Before I dive in, how are you doing, Willem? Looks like you're still
I'm
enjoying some
doing
vacation time.
pretty good. Well, the images may not be perfect, but that's because I'm still in Spain on holiday. And yeah, it's basically living the dream. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm getting really excited about value first framework we're going to talk about today, um, and uh, uh, and we've talked about it a few times, but it's
Correct.
kind of like ever notice how despite all of our talk about customer centricity, human centered design, building authentic relationships, like implementations themselves, onboardings still feel mechanical, right? Like there's not a bunch of humans involved. We try to force it down like a factory method, like, all right, you're going to come in here, you're going to come in here. We don't need you yet because you're way over here. It's not going well, right?
Yeah,
So I
for
think,
a lot of customers. Yeah, correct.
right. So I think there's a reason for that, obviously, or else it wouldn't be happening. And we see every day in HubSpot portals around the world, we're trying to build these authentic customer relationship using systems, processes, and onboarding approaches designed for factories. And then we wonder why adoption struggles, users resist, and ROI disappoints. What we're experiencing in HubSpot onboarding isn't just a collection of isolated problems, in my opinion. It's not just a training challenge or a process issue or a user adoption disconnect. It's the fundamental operating system of modern business fighting against how value is naturally created, naturally wants to flow between organizations, between team members, between different levels of the organization. And I refer to this as the B2B trap. And it's when industrial age thinking collides with human value creation. And I think it's the root cause behind most every HubSpot onboarding failure that we've talked about on this show. And today we're going to talk about the collection of like all the traps that kind of build to make up the B2B trap, and starting a series next week to go through like highlighting exactly what those are, which in most cases, I get a lot of nods like, yep, we feel that every day. And the whole goal of the value first framework is to create a path for organizations to start going down, because the AI age, right? We've been talking about it a lot recently. You, in my opinion, cannot and should not invest in HubSpot onboarding, implementation, adoption without spending a significant amount of energy on AI and what it's doing and what it should be doing for your organization and the users, that will be leveraging HubSpot. Am I going too far with that, Willem?
My idea about onboarding and about how customers, and what I mean with customers is already quite up for the debate, but how you should think about customer centricity is maybe slightly different than how a lot of people think. Because for me, the first question was like, what is a customer? Is that the HubSpot user? So if you sell a portal, let's say as a partner to a customer? Is that the customer, or is it the customer's customer? And if I think back about my customer success days, what we saw with a lot of customers that we tried to help them implement HubSpot better, but they had no idea about their customers' journey and what their customers wanted. And if I tell you, well, okay, so how should the go-to-market motion look like? And you have no idea who your customers are, then you're basically not getting anywhere. But you are absolutely spot on. You should think about, okay, who are my customers in an AI powered age? Because I think that right now everybody is underestimating the impact of AI. But I also think that unlike a lot of other people, that right now AI is meh at best. We're not even getting started. And if you think about HubSpot onboarding, you should already have the processes. You should have already figured out, well, what do my customers want, and bring that into HubSpot. And yes, think about, okay, what do I need from HubSpot? How should my processes look like? And what you mentioned is a factory like onboarding. I would compare that slightly to taking a marketing student out of school, not telling them anything about your business, and say, go and do the marketing. Will that work? They got all the basics, right? I mean, they've been to school for it. They may know more than, I don't know, even you do about marketing, but they don't know anything about your business. They will fail. But they checked all the boxes.
Yep. Yeah, we're digging deep because we're honestly, I'm sick and tired of hearing this problem. Like, because it is getting in the way of what is, in my opinion, the most valuable platform, the most affordable platform that has existed in B2B in terms of growth and go-to-market, marketing and sales and customer experience, all the things that businesses have been struggling with. Meanwhile, all their back end, like operations, like lean manufacturing, like that stuff has been figured out, for years. But you start to, try to process human data and human behavior through that same model, and it doesn't work, right? So here's a couple of examples, and I appreciate the space to read from a script a couple times because it's just, this is how important it is to me. Like I hate scripts usually, but this is
It's like a checklist, right?
right. It's really powerful stuff, and I can go off in the weeds and definitely dilute the message when I get passionate about stuff. So just here's a couple of examples of this trap, like in context, in HubSpot context, right? So example one, the user journey. I should back up because that reminds me, who's the customer? You just asked that question, right?
Yep.
I wish it was so much easier for everybody to just understand that anybody that's around you that you're trying to serve is a customer. And there are internal customers and there are external customers. And in this situation, we should not be differentiating between, like, we have handoff problems internally because we don't treat each other like customers. It's like, you're an employee, I'm an employee, I've got a job to do, just give me the thing, right? And that's where you just give me the thing. You don't give me context, you don't like give me a heads up because we don't, and then we'll turn around and just like everybody wants, we'll say, oh, like external customers, we got to treat them differently. So I think I wish there was an easier word to help with this, but a lot of this is about, like, it's time to take everything we've known from B2B and understand that every single piece of it is changing to some degree. And so here's a couple of examples. Sales rep shows natural interest in HubSpot to serve customers better, but instead of enabling natural learning and relationship development, we force them through our training curriculum. We hand them off between technical specialists and adoption managers and customer success managers. We make them learn features before understanding the customer impact, again, internally and externally. And we measure our success by completion metrics, not the customer relationship improvement. That was example one. Example two, portal configuration. A company wants better customer relationships through HubSpot, but instead of organizing around customer needs, they configure separate hubs with competing metrics. They build handoff points that fragment the customer experience. They implement workflows that reinforce departmental divisions, and they optimize each hub separately rather than the overall customer journey. And one thing that, both of these show an example, like it's self-reinforcing why we're having adoption issues, right? And that's why I like to highlight things like the new journey mapping tools that are literally built based on the customer journey, and it looks a lot like workflows. But in workflows, there's no customer journey sitting anywhere. So it's like internal, like we're building all this with an internal mindset. Those, like that tool set is so intriguing to me because it's going to force people, like based on life cycle stages, how are we doing things in HubSpot? And this handoff in a separate hub situation, just yesterday, right? I heard from an agency where the technical delivery person is constantly frustrated that the customer got sold Marketing and Sales Hub and they need Ops Hub too, and they didn't get it. So now the technical delivery person gets to get frustrated. So your internal customer gets frustrated, and now external customer gets frustrated too. And we create this scenario, and this is like the B2B trap is very much related to SaaS, in my opinion. And what that situation forces is now we got to spend time and effort on workarounds, which can be done in a lot of cases because we didn't invest in the right like stack, right? And that obviously out of the gate, we are mismatched with expectations on both the internal delivery side, where it's like, hey, sales team, why are you putting me in this position? And that from the external customer, hey, technical delivery person, why didn't your team tell me that prior to this point? Right?
It's always a difficult conversation, but keep in mind that a lot of times the customer comes to HubSpot or a partner saying, I have this amount of money. What can I get with that? And then if you are a partner or a HubSpot sales rep who really tries to leverage the most power for the least amount of bucks, then maybe you will cut stuff out that may not be the best thing. And there's always the question like, who is buying, who is using? And often there is such a mismatch between that. And that's also with onboarding. Who is purchasing? Can we basically save a little bit of money on the onboarding? Well, what if we do a generic onboarding because our people are great? They don't need this specific onboarding. You don't need to ask them questions. You just show them a bunch of features because eventually they're buying features, or that's what they think. And I know this is a bad thing to say, but I'm still going to say it. So just show them the features and work off a checklist. Don't ask them questions, just show them and everything. Because if you show them everything just briefly, If you don't do that, then they don't have an idea of what's on there. And yes, I am playing devil's advocate here. I know that that is not the optimal way, because I really, unlike, I know that a lot of people hate checklists. I really like checklists. But how I think you should treat checklists is that if, let's say, we have a customer, the customer is being onboarded, we have a checklist with 200 things on there. We're going to ask specific questions. Do you use this? Do you use that? And we end up basically with just 20 things of the checklist where we're going to say, this is what we're going to go through. Because the other 180, nah, don't care. And I like checklists, but in that way, not in the way like we're going to go through all the features. And I think that if you implement that, that you come a lot closer to something that's value driven.
Yeah. And I think that relates definitely to the example of the rep who has to learn features and he doesn't even know like how it impacts his process, how it impacts the people around him, right, on the team, and how it impacts the customer. And that only happens when you just blindly go through feature checklists like you're suggesting, instead of saying, hey guys, we've got a super valuable tool here. Let's work together to go through this list. And I want to hear from everybody on the team what matters to them and what they think is going to matter to their customers, right? That's how you get down to these really meaningful, intentional checklists, right? So that's well said, and 100% agree. Because HubSpot, like the double-edged sword of HubSpot, is that it's very easy to see one thing and see another new thing right next to it and be like, oh, maybe we should use that, right?
Yeah. It looks shiny, so why not?
Right. And I think what I'm trying to highlight is that there's so many reasons instilled in B2B, in the infrastructure that we all know well, and we all experience these things every day. Like knowing that budget is not the best place to start from, knowing that I might be able to win the sale easier if I sell you marketing and sales and don't mention an extra cost from Ops Hub, knowing that you probably should get Ops Hub too. Like there's so many factors, and this is where the 10 pillars come in, that go into enabling those outcomes that we know in our soul in a lot of cases, right? But I got to override my internal, stuff to hit my numbers, to get the KPI, lots of reasons for this, right? So I'm going to run through all 10 and then
Yes, please.
we'll come back to you to get some commentary. So first one, we're starting with the biggest elephant in the room, which is AI, right? So instead of experiencing the AI replacement trap, I call it value first AI. In the case of HubSpot, we will integrate AI to enhance customer connection, not replace it, right? Instead of using HubSpot AI to process customers more efficiently, we will use it to enable more authentic human relationships. AI handles coordination while humans focus on creativity and connection. Number 2, instead of falling into the leads trap, we choose value first humans. We will honor natural human progression over forced process compliance. Instead of forcing teams through predetermined training stages, we'll design HubSpot adoption that supports how humans naturally discover, evaluate, and adopt new customer possibilities. And this situation is counter to what we know to be true. And this is why it's a challenge. A lot of leads come HubSpot's way because they're looking for lead gen.
Yep.
Right. And to do that, you force the rest of the process to go through an really unnatural way of implementation. So that's what we're trying to avoid there. Number 3, we are avoiding the advertising trap to achieve value-first communication. So we will listen for authentic needs rather than confirming predetermined solutions. Instead of qualification processes that fit customers into HubSpot categories, we'll engage in genuine discovery that honors customer complexity and authentic needs. And we create a process to support that. And I would argue that you might call this process inbound. Number 4, we're trying to avoid the lead magnet trap. With value-first content, we will provide value at every stage without requiring artificial advancement. So instead of seeing HubSpot Forms as a ticket, as a license to gate your product catalog so you can get an email address, meanwhile keeping valuable customer insights, behind these forms, will make genuine value accessible at each stage of natural customer progression. Number 5, we're going to avoid the qualification trap with value first partner. We will build capability rather than create dependency. Instead of vendor client HubSpot transactions, we will focus on developing customer relationship capability and confidence through genuine partnership approaches, which means we onboard to enable and not onboard to require us. Number 6, avoiding the managed services trap and going with value first delivery. We will enable authentic exploration without hidden agenda or pressure. Instead of sales pressure and artificial urgency, we'll create environments where customers can explore possibilities completely and comfortably. Number 7, we're going to avoid the ERP trap with value first platform. We will design systems that adapt to customers, internal and external, rather than requiring the customer to adapt to the system. Instead of training customers to work within limitations, we'll configure systems, often with the help of AI now, that adjust to how customers naturally engage. Number 8, we will avoid the measurement trap with value first measurement. We're going to measure success through customer value realization, not internal process completion. Instead of conversion rates and pipeline velocity, we'll track customer outcomes and relationship development. They're very similar metrics. It's just that nuance is so important. Number 9, we're going to avoid the conformity trap with value first culture. We will embrace customer complexity rather than forcing oversimplification. Instead of reducing customers to HubSpot scores and categories, we'll design approaches that honor the nuanced reality of customer relationships. And number 10, we will avoid the authority trap and focus on value first leadership. We will evolve continuously based on customer learning rather than internal assumptions. Instead of static HubSpot best practices, we'll build systems for ongoing learning and adaptation based on customer feedback and changing conditions. And I'll add a little extra on there, which means leadership is involved in the process, right? So as I went through those, Willem, what resonated most? What just sticks out? I really want to say something about that one.
In a way, I'm one of the people who has really, really mixed feelings about AI, which was one of the first things that you mentioned. If it was up to me, we would put AI back into the box and we would basically send it back to where it came from. But it's not up to me, and that is not a reality that is feasible. So if you can't beat them, join them. That is a universal truth, basically. So if I look at myself, I adopt AI on a high level. But what every company right now should think about is like, okay, so what is AI actually? Where does it get its data from? And that is where you also mentioned the ERP systems, for instance. If you can get the information into HubSpot so that your AI, your companion, which I'm going to call it for now, and yes, that is Breeze, but I don't care much about the names, keep that in mind, uh, that it can see it and that it can help you, because that will be the future. You're a human, like you said, you handle the connections, but you basically have an assistant that tells you, ooh, in the last conversation, there was something with his dog, and maybe you should ask for that. Because if you have a gazillion calls a day, or as a sales rep, for instance, you might not remember the dog's name. And there is so much there that we should really think about at this moment. AI first. And whether you like it or not, that is the reality. And that is what I mentioned in last week's session. Even if right now you're going to say, I am not going to use AI, get ready to use it. So,
Like, start using it, actually. Like, get your mind
yeah,
right
but
and start using it. You bring up a good point, though, right? When I first drafted this, I want humans to be the first thing that people think about, right? And I had that trap, the leads trap with value first humans as the number one thing, and AI was number two. One, it was a marketing decision to lead with AI because that's the talk, of the town right now, as it should be. But two, like I led with, we've tried the humans thing for years, for decades. Customer centricity, be more human, build authentic, and we failed. Like these adoption rates of 50% CRM, adoption, 70% failure of digital transformation. Those are failures of the system that we've tried to put into place,
yeah, but
right? And
why did
because
it
of that,
fail?
right? But because of that, all the messaging, and this is a very real progression from George's superhuman framework, right? Because
Yeah,
I love it. I think it's an amazing framework that puts it in perspective that leaders and team members and individual stakeholders need to hear. But they've been hearing a lot of things like that for years, right? We talk about, they ask you answer and story brand and all these different, the closer you get to you know, uh, like not self-help, but self-improvement, right? Frameworks. They're all over the place, which means
yeah,
it's kind of noise. So if I were to lead, hey, we got to be great humans. Like people have tuned that out because of all
correct.
of the reasons, like I think throughout the framework. And that's really where that doesn't mean and this is how a lot of people are treating it. They're giving up on that part and saying, all right, I guess AI is just going to come in and do this stuff. So we'll just buy all the AI tools and we'll get customer agent in there. And then we'll not worry about the humans anymore. Well, that's not going to work
Yeah.
either, right?
And let's use a different tool every week, because I heard that, ooh, this week, that tool is best. So let's switch everything around. And then you forget also about the humans that have to use the tool, because you're not going to learn a new tool every week. But what I also heard in there, basically, in multiple of the traps, because it should be in multiple traps, because that's just how it is designed. If you have a small company, let's say you're a one-man show, all you care about is the eventual goal. But if we're gonna scale that one-person company to, let's say, a 6,000 people company, you have different departments where each department has different goals, and they will, I'm not going to say fight, because they're not going to do that. But let's say sales says, give me more leads. Marketing creates more leads by doing the lead magnet trap and just asking for an email address with some random nonsense. And yeah, you get better results for that specific department because they generate more leads. Looks fantastic, right? But what is the waterfall effect? And I think that these 10 rules, if you combine them, because I don't think that you should look at one rule as an individual rule, that is
Yep.
really powerful.
Yeah. And that's what's hard. Like, it's all connected, right? It's
Yep.
not just plug in here and plug in over here. That's how we treat it, though, right? It's like everybody wants to start a sales plan conversation from, okay, how many deals do we need to win? All right, that means we need this many open deals. That means we need this many qualified leads, which means that's not how humans operate. It's how we would love for them to. And so before we wrap, just some quick steps. Like, if you're all in and this all resonates, like, here's some things that you can do. You don't have to wait for the next 2 weeks. There's also lots of other content that I'm going to be sharing. But this also, like, why HubSpot can help you so much get over these traps, right? So first, recognize in your HubSpot, whether you're being onboarded for the first time, implementing or adding or just using, like, current state analysis, right? Where
Or
is this?
hopefully rethink your entire go-to-market strategy.
Right. I was listening to a podcast today, like the 9 reasons, and like almost all of them relate to this trap, right? Like, we've built a system that can not sustain the outcomes that we're looking for. And some commentary that I'm starting to work through and get more comfortable with is, I think we're gonna 100 years from now, we're gonna look back at the SaaS era and be like, well, we gave it our best, but that clearly was not our best moment. Like, it was our first attempt at solving the problem. It gave AI some good training data to work with, but clearly, like, the intelligence, infrastructure was not there to make it
Can we make
successful.
that 5 years from now instead of 100?
Yeah, it could be, could be. But here's what you can do. Like, and again, I'm targeting some things that are challenging for people on purpose, right? We haven't dealt with these things. That's why we continue to have these problems, right? So, language audit. Yeah, there's nuance to words, folks. So if you're going to start working through, these traps, trying to get to a value first place, listen for the mechanical metaphors and that are happening in HubSpot conversations of moving prospects through the funnel, processing leads, managing pipeline. They all reveal, and it's almost always the way that we talk about this mechanical mindset, rather than relationship orientation. Experience mapping. It comes up again. I'm sorry. You got to do mapping. You got to understand what your customer is going through. Walk through the customer's actual experience in HubSpot. Where do they have to repeat information across hubs? What artificial barriers slow their progress? How many handoffs do they experience? Where do your HubSpot workflows create external friction? Also internal friction. Like, the internal friction almost always leads to external friction, right?
Yeah.
Metrics assessment. Examine the HubSpot measurement systems. Do you optimize for conversion or customer success? Are hubs competing or are they collaborating? When you've got lead generation just coming in and sales is just going out using sequences, not even paying attention to those leads, that's not collaboration. I'll say that much. Do you measure activity or impact? Are the HubSpot reports customer-centric or internally focused? So once you recognize the trap, just map one customer relationship in HubSpot. Pick your most valuable customer and trace their entire journey through your HubSpot system. Identify every artificial barrier and handoff point, then imagine what could this relationship become if these constraints were removed. Again, this is not the first time anybody's heard these things. My hope is like we're in a different world. There's a different point of view. Like maybe we can finally get the point across, but create cross-functional customer teams. Form teams organized around customer needs rather than, departmental boundaries. Give them authority.
And that is what I meant with the go-to-marketing process that we might need. I don't know, maybe we should come up with a title like go-to-market strategist or architect or something like that.
Or go-to-market engineer.
Yep.
Yeah. But the whole goal is to give this team authority to remove the barriers and create seamless experiences across the platform so customers have seamless experience.
Exactly.
There's another oldie but goodie. Implement unified value metrics. Develop shared measures of customer success that apply across all your teams and across all the hubs. Make these the primary metrics that drive customer decisions and portal decisions. Open HubSpot knowledge boundaries. Remove artificial gates from valuable customer information. Create HubSpot systems that enable expertise to flow freely to where it creates the most value. This is where, all these permissioning updates that are happening in the system. Just be careful. Like teams need context to serve customers well. And if they can't see the email from the previous person, they're going to miss out on that context. And then experiment with natural workflows. Test HubSpot processes that follow customer logic rather than internal convenience. Allow the customer needs to shape the HubSpot experience for your team and theirs, rather than forcing them through predetermined automation paths, which is what you're doing when you just take the stages of a deal, for example, and you don't modify them, you don't think about them. You're like, oh, these are the default stages. We're just going to build our process and force customers to go through that. That might not work for your business. It likely won't work, for your business.
Or
So those are a few things you can do. What's that?
Or at least not optimally, because there are a lot of companies who implement something that could be a lot better. And I mean a lot better, but it still kind of works. So they're still happy with it. But the question is, should you be? If you can do 50% better, should you just say, well, we're making revenue right now, so what's the concern? But that is why I really think people should pay attention to what are the traps. Are we falling into that? Could we do a lot better? And that would help everybody.
I agree. Like it starts with just asking the questions. Like, one, is it happening to us? You likely already know that it is, and you're nodding when you hear some of this stuff. So the next question is, why aren't we doing anything about it? Right?
Yep.
And that's the tough one to answer. Right? But this whole framework is about helping you answer that question, because most of this is just there's different incentives across the place, up and down the organization. and they all relate to this industrial age structure that has been created. And we got to figure out a way to move into the age of AI, because it can help solve so much of this. And it already is. We're already seeing it in a lot of HubSpot places. Data cleanup that we've never been good at, automation, in simple things like creating descriptions for all the things in HubSpot. Like,
Yeah,
right, that goes a long way towards.
but it's just beginning.
Yeah. So I look forward to continuing the journey next week. Thank you so much, Willem, for again,
My pleasure.
the whole purpose is these are all of the non-HubSpot things that get in the way of HubSpot, value and ROI. So I'd love
But
to
at the
hear.
end of the day, HubSpot is just a tool. Keep that in mind. And that is why it's so important to look at, well, arguably the more important stuff.
Yes. Yep. Well, thank you again. I look forward to continuing to share this model, and would love any feedback from those of you out there that this resonates with. And it's going to be a team effort across the industry to create this change. But I believe we can do it. And look forward to coming back next week and addressing the challenges of HubSpot onboarding. Well,
Absolutely.
have a great weekend, everybody.
Enjoy your weekend.